This is water. It changes forms, shapes. We drink it, we eat it. I don't know how we eat it, but he said we eat it. I have to believe him. Hello, this is Salah Johar, and in today's Nagarit number 241, I'll be commenting on Prime Minister Abiy's latest lecture. Enjoy. Abiy's latest lecture was about 45 minutes long. As you might have noticed, it was a kind of a high school introductory philosophy laced with poetic pronouncements. Abiy explained that water is H2O. It changes forms, it gets angry, it gets happy, it listens, but he didn't say if it speaks. It kills, it quenches thirst. We drink it, we eat it, I don't know how we eat it. It cleans clothes and dirt, and sometimes it milks the cows in the barn. An orange is not an orange, but water.
የሰው ልጅ ብሬን 75% ውሃ ነው።
Our heads are a reservoir of water, not brains as we think. Water is energy and hydrogen is energy. Good to know. If I drop this glass of water, depending on the elevation, it will break most probably. And that is not the glass getting broken on its own. It's the water that breaks it. I thought it was gravity as my high school teachers taught me, but I discovered it's not because I have to believe Abiy. He is a Nobel Prize laureate. They are not. And tsunami is water, by the way. I don't think Abiy did well in his Bible studies because if he did, the deluge of Prophet Noah. If he told them that, I presume some of them would have crossed themselves or murmured, Subhanallah. Abiy's poetic lecture mesmerized most to the extent that they were just taking notes like good students without paying attention to what he was saying. The sprinkle of oceanography was very interesting. I thought he did better than the late Jacques Cousteau. And as if I was sentenced by a court order, I had to listen all the 45 minutes of nonsense, what we commonly call Habbas Kaddas. If you don't believe me, I implore you to listen to it from the horse's mouth. Sorry, I don't mean a horse in the barn. Pretty close to that. Abiy beat around any available Ethiopian bush, and then finally he arrived at the water. The gist of his lecture. The water. Not this water, the Red Sea water.
ፍላጎታችን ሰላም፣ አንድነት፣ ብልጽግና ነው። በቀይ ባህር ምክንያት የምናጣው ከሆነ ዋጋ የለውም።
The last lecture was the pinnacle of his soft launch. His aggression or his intent to aggress on the Red Sea. Those who follow me know that I have been very suspicious of Abiy since he was consecrated in Oslo 5 years ago. And I discovered he cannot help but follow the footsteps of the feudal kings, the peasant kings of Abyssinia. He cannot resist igniting wars. Fortunately for me, my great-grandfather had a farm. Iya-iya-ho. And on his farm he has a dog. Iya-iya-ho. And that dog, by miracle, I inherited its smelling senses.
geopoliticsን ከዘነጋ ነው አይሆንም። ሰላም እንዲሆን አንደኛው መታየት ያለበት ቀይ ባህር ነው። ግጭት የሚባል እኛ አንፈልግም፣ ግን እናነሳዋለን።
No, 11th. And the 11th commandment reads, Thou shalt not covet the Red Sea. And off he will be sent to Dante Alighieri's Inferno. She chose to covet donkeys. We have droves of them and would have given him some, willingly. The Ethiopian Prime Minister sounded very generous when he embarrassingly said that Ethiopia gives water to all its neighbors. It sounded as if he curved the rivers and directed them to go where they're going now. He forgets that nation states came to the rivers. The rivers didn't come to the nation states. That is creation. Before nation states were born, before Ethiopia was born, before Africa was born. My suspicion about Abiy started from the beginning. When he started to assemble all the ex-Derg, ex-Haile Selassie expansionists and fanatics. Some were even appointed in high positions in his government. He just assembled them, rehabilitated them. And you know who these people are. They just wake up every morning screaming, "Kay Baharachin!" That is their slogan. Kay Baharachin means our Red Sea in Amharic. And the provocations by such people never stopped. A few weeks ago, the Red Sea basin countries held a meeting. And in that meeting, they didn't invite him. They didn't invite him because Ethiopia is not a Red Sea basin. He was mad. He felt excluded because Isaias has given him the responsibility of the state. He was delegated by Isaias to run Eritrea and Ethiopia together. And he took it to heart. And from what we have seen over the last few years, he is vengeful. And what did he do? He called his own Red Sea meeting. Never mind because some of the countries were not even Red Sea countries. I'm sure he thought that was a smart rebound. And you know what was wrong with that previous meeting of the Red Sea countries that he called? The smell of the UAE was all over the place. And it was his soft launch, the teaser. And that was a pre-launch of what he disclosed recently. It was amateurish, it was evil, even if it was camouflaged with some poetic and philosophical tidbits. To me, the scariest thing is his marching orders that he gave to his propaganda arm. He encouraged the already destructive populist discourse in his media and propaganda arm. And then there is the hidden threat.
120 ሚሊዮን ስለሆንኩ ጉልበት ስላለኝ መከላከያ ስላለኝ አየር ስላለኝ ሰው ደብድቤ ገድዬ ነው ወይ የምቀርበው ያላችሁ እንደሆነ እንደዛ ማድረግ የለብንም። በግድያና በጦርነት ደግሞ እንዳይሆን ፋክትን ዲናይ ማድረግ ሲል ማድረግ ደግሞ ትክክል አይደለም።
Of course, we are not going to fight or shed any blood to get that Red Sea access. But we will talk about it. That is a hidden threat. An Abiy type of threat. Otherwise, why would you keep mentioning your military prowess, your strengths, your air force, your armies, your population, and all that is supposed to scare everyone else? Some people are not scared with that kind of threats. They're just worried. They think it's useless. It's unnecessary. If I had a chance to talk to Abiy, I would tell him, "Dear Abiy, your rule would be remembered in history as the era where thousands of people were killed. It cost the region billions of dollars worth of loss. You dragged the region into a very devastating war, and it's still continuing. And you're using the same tactics to distract your opponents and elongate the suffering. Ethiopia has been dragged back decades."
እና አሁን ፉከራ በዛ። ሁሉም ይፎክራል። ምንድነው ከትውልድ ወደ ትውልድ ደም ያስለመደው ባህል? እንደ ቆሌ የያዘው ሰው ደም ካላፈሰሰ ረጋ ማይል ሆነ ሰዋችን። ስለዚህ ውድ የጎረቤታችን ሰዎች 30 ዓመት የገነባችሁት ራሳችሁ አታፍርሱት። እሱን ጠብቁ። የጎደለ ነገር ካለ እሱን ማሟላት ያስፈልጋል እንጂ የተገነባውን ማፍረስ ደግ አይደለም። ኢትዮጵያ ረሃብ ከገባባት ደህነት ከወረሳት የሆነ ነገር ከሆነች ወደ አምላክ ሄዳችሁ አምላክ ምን አደረግንም ብላችሁ አምላክን አትክሰሱ። አምላክ የሚሰጠውን ሁሉ ሰጥቷችኋል።
In one of my videos I said, if Ethiopia is hit by famine, drought, or any natural disaster, no one should look up and say, "Oh God, why did you do this to us?" It's of your own making. God bestowed you with enough water, forests, mountains, beautiful landscape, enough population to toil the land. I mean, Ethiopia is endowed with everything that any other country would wish for. Who would imagine that Ethiopia has bigger numbers of camels, bigger than what the Arabs combined own? Abiy's brinkmanship politics and governance, it gave a boost to the culture of war. That is a problem of your own making. Don't blame it on the lack of access to the Red Sea. The thing is, Abiy is doing my job. I'm a writer, speaker, and I consider myself a thinker at times. So he's doing my job. So it's only fair that I do his job. I diligently follow what happens in the region, in the Horn of Africa. I have given many speeches. I have written many articles regarding all the problems that Abiy mentioned, the Red Sea, the Nile, and what have you. But I was flabbergasted when I heard him claim that the Red Sea, Ethiopia owns the Red Sea based on historical realities. And to ascertain the rights of Ethiopia, he goes back in history to the pre-Christian times, the Aksumite kingdom.
በዚህ ሳይድ ሙሉና በዚህ ሳይድ ሙሉ ቀይ ባህርን ኦልሞስት አብዛኛውን ፓርት የሚቆጣጠረው አክሱማይት ኪንግደም ነበር።
As far as I know, Eritrea has more claim on the Aksumite kingdom than Ethiopia. Ethiopia was never a seafaring nation. Never. And if one can lay a claim based on historical facts, weren't the Egyptians claiming rights over the Nile River based on historical facts? Ancient Egypt depended on the Nile. When there was no Ethiopia, no Egypt, no Sudan, no nothing. In the days when they built the pyramids, it was thousands of years before Christ was born. Does that give them a right? to base their claim on mythical and folkloric stuff. There was no Ethiopia or Egypt or Sudan or any of the nations that we know today. I can't say he is dumb, but he is unintelligent because he makes another weird claim on the Red Sea based on what Ras Alula said.
አሉላ አባ ነጋ ራሱ ቀይ ባህር የኢትዮጵያ የተፈጥሮ ወሰን ሆኖ ኖሯል ይኖራል ይላል። wisdom ነው።
Ras Alula was a viceroy of a representative of King Johannes, one of the Ethiopian emperors. And Alula is remembered in Eritrea for his atrocities. In the region between Karan, my hometown, and Massawa, there is a place called Damjulut. Damjulut means washed in blood. It's like the aftermath of a massacre or an atrocity where everybody is washed in blood. That is Damjulut.
አሉላ አባ ነጋ ራሱ ቀይ ባህር የኢትዮጵያ የተፈጥሮ ወሰን ሆኖ ኖሯል ይኖራል ይላል። wisdom ነው።
And in this instance, the blood was shed by Alula, where he killed, I don't know how many, but he just eradicated the whole region. And for Abiy to use Alula to convince Eritreans of his argument is very cruel of Abiy to use such arguments to win over Eritreans. It's stupid, in fact. I wish he could stop threatening Eritrea with the number of his army, how big his military is, and how many jets he has, how many drones he has, or how many drones the UAE will supply him. That doesn't count because your predecessors, the Dirk and Haile Selassie, they all lost in search or in pursuit of the Red Sea. But once they got it, they didn't even know how to use it, just like it's happening now. We own it, that's all, but we are not going to do anything with it. Running a port efficiently and effectively requires shunning the culture of war. Otherwise, you can have 10 ports or 20 ports, they're useless. Abiy also says that we supply all our neighbors with fresh water through our rivers. He makes it sound as if he curved the path of the rivers.
አሁን በ2030 150 ሚሊዮን ልትሆን ነው። 150 ሚሊዮን ህዝብ ጂኦግራፊካል ፕሪዝን ሆኖ መኖር አይችልም።
But following on that logic, if somebody has a coast and you think they shouldn't have that cost and you are worthy of it more than them because you have 130 million or 120 million people, if that is the only criteria, then what prevents you from going to the UAE, which is only 9 million or so population, mostly migrants? They have a lot of oil. Why can't he just claim their oil and tell them, oh, you're only 9 million and we are 130 million, so we deserve it more than you? Why can't you use the same logic? So that you understand the angle I'm coming from, I have written many times chastising the Eritrean government for losing the business of Ethiopia to Djibouti. I encouraged the restoration of the agreement whereby Ethiopia can use Eritrean ports. In my last interview, I think it was 2011 with the late Mullah Sanawi, we talked about this stuff. And then I asked him about the ports, and he said, well, we are not that much interested in Asab or Massawa. For us, a convenient outlet will be Tiao. Tiao is somewhere between Asab and Massawa. It's a fishing village. I never thought of Tiao as an alternative until that time. But such facilities, dear Abiy, you cannot get by threatening or by force because it has owners and the owners will protect it. And where does that take us? Into the bloodshed, Damjulut. And that has been your nature. And that has been our problem with dealing with Ethiopia. Abiy and his government, I think they have lost it. They don't have any rationale. They're very emotional, self-centered, selfish. Let me finish with the most important and yet the most frustrating point that I will make. Prime Minister Abiy, in all your speeches, in all your statements, I have never seen you raise a word about the respect and dignity and freedom of citizens. It's all about military, it's all about wealth, it's all about the wealthy. That class only interests you. The downtrodden, no. You keep them just doses of propaganda, like your claim that you will be exporting wheat to the rest of Africa, to the rest of the world. You will become a wheat exporter, a net wheat exporter. Now we are begging for wheat. Be honest, because people have brains here, not water, as you claim. You must have believed that Isaias owns Eritrea just like a ranch, like you're trying to own Ethiopia. So signing an agreement with Isaias, because Saudi Arabia and Emirates blessed it, will give you all the right. Who does Isaias represent? Where are the other faces? Did you see anyone? No. It was him and you. Of course, there was Saudi Arabia and Emirates, the guys who had the checks. So, please remember, you are not the landlords of the two countries, where you exchange sovereign responsibilities or gift each other with sovereign responsibilities. And if you had enough diplomatic knowledge, you would have known that that agreement you signed with Isaias was born wingless. It cannot fly. It didn't fly, and it will not fly. So instead of doubling down, please come to your senses and correct your mistakes. And so that you don't get confused when I said the rights and justice and fairness and freedom and all the good things that life has to offer. I was not thinking like the Scandinavian, Swiss, or all the blessed countries that are enjoying total freedom and dignity of their citizens. No, I'm not aspiring to that much. I'm not that ambitious. I would settle for basic freedoms, basic justice, and basic stability.
የባህር በር ባለቤትነት ሁለንተናዊ እይታ አሁን አይቻልም ማለት ነገ አይቻልም ማለት አይደለም።
See, Prime Minister Abiy, I am a reasonable person and I think I know what I'm talking about. Sasufi, sei perdonato.